This is the city commission work session, March 11th at 4 o'clock, a little bit after 4, I'm sure, but, anyway, roll call, please.
Mayor Litchfield,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Duplantis,
Here.
Commissioner Moya,
Here.
Commissioner Guerrero,
Here.
Commissioner Arias.
Here.
Although our work sessions are open to the public, the purpose of work session is to give the commission the opportunity to discuss certain items that arise within the city and is not for public comments. However, if you wish to hear the discussion, please join from your computer, tablet, or smartphone. You can also dial in using your phone. Our first thing on the agenda today is a meeting with the Tucumcari Historical Research Institute regarding the Tucumcari City Museum. Are you doing that?
Yes, we thought our president was doing that, but he is unable to be here because he's a school teacher in Melville Grove.
So be sure you're in the microphone.
So what we want to talk about is, in June, we were told at a city commission meeting that the museum operating agreement that we had been working under for the last 10 years, we were told that that was null and void. That contract between the city and THRI, we need some kind of agreement. The building and grounds are property of the city. The items displayed, all the memorabilia, the artifacts that are present in the museum belong to THRI. So if we don't work together, we don't have a museum. The museum is a incredibly important asset to this city. We have visitors from, well, this morning before noon, we had a number of visitors from 3 different states, and that was before noon today. We, unfortunately, due to COVID, everything was shut down for a while. So obviously the numbers for the last year are 0. But prior to that, we have many guests from all over the US, many guests from foreign countries. I just can't stress enough how important this museum is as an asset to the community. We talk about other things that we want to do to encourage tourism and as well as have things for our local folks to do. This is a great opportunity. There are many opportunities there for learning for our children. With school tours and things like that. THRI has been working on special programs to develop for doing things with kids as well. We're partnering with the art museum, or the arts, that's not it either. It was the gallery, etc., but some of those folks have had to dissolve due to lack of funds with the COVID thing. But they want to teach art classes at the museum, and we would love to have them do that. So we're working with them to get that going as soon as things open up that we can do it. We have an individual who wants to teach genealogy classes, which fits right in with the museum. So we need an operating agreement between you all. Back when the museum was established in 1959, that building was originally belonged to the school district. The school district gave the museum building to THRI. THRI then deeded the property to the city with the agreement that it be a museum. You all, well, not you all, but the city commission at the time in 1990 passed an ordinance. It's a number 814, and it's an ordinance that created the City of Tucumcari Museum Board and providing for the manner of appointment of members, providing for meetings thereof, and outlining its duties and repealing the previous ordinance that had to do with that. Mr. Moya may remember that. He was the mayor at the time and signed this ordinance. We don't have a museum advisory board anymore. for whatever reason, that just kind of got lost. It quit meeting. I don't know. But because of that, we don't have a way to correspond with you all. We don't have any communication. And after June 25th, when we were told that our agreement was null and void, we really haven't had any communication. So that's not really working together. So the purpose of our meeting today is to try to start a conversation and see what we can do about working together to enhance this museum for the city of Tucumcari.
Okay, Mark, you want to address this?
I could. So I think there's a few options, and I think a lot of them are gonna be contingent on where we go with the budget this fiscal year. One of the ideas was I wouldn't mind turning that building back over to THRI. I mean, let them work on the museum. In regards to working with them, I think we could still provide building funds for maintenance, which we have done. I know the city's put forth quite a bit of funding with the asbestos remediation, upkeep, general maintenance and whatnot. I do appreciate THRI and all that they've done. I think as a city, we've worked a little bit more trying to help them with some promotion and whatnot. We've been there with the New Mexico Tourism Department. We've been there with Bands of Enchantment. They're actively talking about potentially doing some acoustic sets there. So we're doing things within our means what we can to try to help promote it a little bit better. But again, we're strapped by a tight budget, and there's only so much we can do as far as providing staff and budget to continue the upkeep of the building. I think in regards to old ordinances and agreements, if the ordinance doesn't read as it should, I think we've kind of discussed that with a lot of the other ordinances. The city commission needs to meet together for a work session. We discuss that and make it where it is realistic. And I think, again, budget's really going to direct where we go with this. How much is the city going to be involved and how much is going to be required through volunteer?
I have a question. Okay. How much of Tucumcari's assets and positive things are going to go away? I understand budget concerns. Every household has budget concerns. I think that there are other ways, if we have things at the museum to promote it. You know, we tried very hard THRI worked really, really hard to have anniversary celebrations. You know, we spent a lot more money than the executive branch of lodgers tax funds gave us. We spend more annually for advertising than the city does on the museum. We pay for printing of rat cards. We pay for the distribution of the rat cards. We have it's old news, which currently there's one more month of the city advertising dollars being spent on. When we don't have that, we seek people to sponsor that, to pay for it, so that we are trying to be in the eye of the city all the time, you know, so that the citizens know that the museum's there, there's things to do there. You know, we are working on restoring the windmill. We've been working very hard on restoring the airplane. We've had community support in that. I don't want to see this asset go away. And, you know, if the museum should go away, that oldest beautiful building in town was built in 1902. It opened for school in 1903. If we leave that building, it'll go to dust and crumbles like a number of other things around here. I really hope you don't want that to happen.
Mayor Pro Tem DePlantis, you have anything you want to ask?
Well,
When it comes to coming up with an agreement, what are y'all thoughts on what y'all are wanting in this agreement?
Well, obviously that you all continue to maintain the building, and we need to be able to have discussions about that. There are some serious concerns at that building. And, I know that when Mr. Arias came on the commission, I took him to the museum and we spent a couple hours going around and I was pointing out to things to him that needed repaired and replaced and that have not happened in the 50 years that the city has had custody of the building. THRI is not independently wealthy. You know, it's gonna be really, really difficult if the city abandons the museum completely and we have to pay taxes and insurance and water and things like that on the building. I'm not sure we could handle it. I'm not sure we could do it. I don't think, you know, I would like the hours to be longer. We have had many of the motels in town tell us, the historic hotels in particular, tell us that their guests come in starting at 3 o'clock. They come in at that time so they can look around town and see what's going on and what there is to do here. Well, if our museum closes at 3 and can't open until 10 the next day, we lose all those tourists.
Why is it closing at 3? Because I know that's come up before.
Last year, when you all had the budget cuts for the museum was hit very hard, as were other areas of the city, but the city employee is only there 20 hours a week. So currently, our museum is only open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. That's really, really limited for a museum looking to invite out-of-town guests in.
And we don't have a volunteer program or anything?
That's what I was gonna say, Mayor Pro Tem. Out of the 3 different museums that are housed in city facilities, Route 66 Museum, the Railroad Museum, and the Historical Museum, not one of those is provided staff. Yes, it was a difficult decision to have to do that in reducing hours, but I feel if we want to open our doors a little longer at the Historical Museum, maybe we need more volunteers to step up. I know there's plenty of volunteers that are already out there as it is, and they're stretched thin, but we do not provide that to anybody else. In regards to the cuts last year, it was due to personnel. We did not cut when it came to building maintenance. We've still stood strong with that. We still provide parks crew to go clean up the property. So I think the main thing at that time was a reduction in the staff. And it's just being practical. We have to take, I'm not saying the museum's not an asset. I think it's great for our community. It's huge for tourism. Everybody I've seen or I've personally escorted through there, they love it. The thing is, we have to start with the critical infrastructure that we must have open. I never discussed about closing it down. I just want to make that clear. It's just, what can we do to be a little bit more practical when it comes to our budget?
And, I was at the meeting when we discussed the agreement last time, but, we've had a lot happen since the last meeting. And what made it to where I understand that basically an MOU can only go so long, you gotta renew it. What was it that we didn't want to do another agreement?
So it was never that we didn't want to do another agreement. I think it's just coming to the table and deciding what both parties want.
Okay.
I know with minimum wage going up, we're already seeing compression. We're faced with difficult issues based on things that are passed at a federal or state level that are out of our control, and we have to live with that. We're doing our best to strive towards getting down to a balanced budget, and in order to do that, we're doing it in small phases, chipping away at that deficit instead of coming in one year and wiping everything out at one time. And it's going to be difficult, not only this year. Next year, we jump from this year to January 1 of 2022, we're going to jump from $10.50 to $11.50 minimum wage.
I thought we were just talking at 11.
No, $11.50, and then after that, we're jumping up to 12 the following year. So it's also not fair to those individuals that work in public works or other entities, EMS, that they have to carry a certification to have their job. It's difficult, so we have to start working at this a little at a time. We're just trying to stay ahead and be proactive.
That's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Arias?
So building on that, thank you, Mayor. So building on that, would the Research Institute be able to provide a volunteer to accommodate the hours you're wishing to have?
It would be difficult because we have a very aging population and, previously you all had, the previous two city managers had made it very clear that there was a huge vetting process that any volunteer had to go through, including background check and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that makes it difficult because people don't want to go through that. And we're concerned about the volunteers that come because of the artifacts that are there. So we want to have, obviously, honest people. They're gonna be handling some money too because they take the funds, the admission money and anything that we would sell in the museum, are gift shop items. So, you know,
It'd be difficult.
it makes it a little difficult, yeah.
Okay, and as Miss Cindy suggested, I did tour the building with her, and I will agree that, you know, the city does do a good job at maintaining the grounds, but there are some issues with the maintenance that would need to really be addressed. I mean, from what I recall, there were some bricks that the mortar was coming out.
Well, we have a leak because the door on the upstairs on the south side of the building, got the fire escape, there's a door there. The molding all around the door is compromised, and every time rain blows, then it runs down the wall and it's causing more damage to the plaster walls inside the building. We also have some electrical issues. We have had the lights out in the basement for a year and a half now. Paula has had numerous work orders in to get that addressed, and it's not been addressed. She has other work orders that have been in for a long period of time that haven't been addressed. So, as I stated earlier, one problem that we have is communication with the city. This needs to be a cooperative effort, and I don't feel that it is. And you know, we were told that, okay, you don't have an agreement anymore. And we were also, at that meeting, it was mentioned that perhaps there would be something about all the museums being treated the same, all the museums. Okay, well, I'm not opposed to that. I have problems with no communication.
And so what I was getting to with the damages is, you know, some of those were at some point are gonna start taking away from the historical value of the building.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then the longer you have water leaks, the more problems you have. That doesn't get better with age. So we need to fix these things.
Yeah. And I know, Mark, I haven't visited with you on this, I don't believe it, since you've taken over. I know the last time I really talked to you about it was with the previous city manager. And then things happened there, but I can see both sides, and I think that's the biggest issue. I think we all see both sides, but it is an asset to us. We at least should come to the table and try figuring something out. I know budget's concerns. My humble opinion would be that if we do maintain the structure of the building and the grounds, then there would need to be something on TGI's part where we can trim cost as well. I think that would be a productive conversation.
Commissioner Arias, if I may, just to address the work order comment. I have access to this, and periodically as quality control, I go in there to see what facilities maintenance work orders are to make sure they're moving. And I have no evidence of any active work orders at the museum. I'm not sure where these work orders were generated or where they sit, but I've also never received communication from the museum director either of them not being completed.
Okay. So with us now knowing of the concerns, will there be a way to get Chris out there to do a?
Absolutely, as long as it's feasible and within our budget. I mean, we can't go re-roof things if we don't have
Yes.
the funding to do that, because we have multiple buildings out in poor shape. The city warehouse, the city recreation center, I mean, we work within the means of our budget the best we can.
And I think the point of this conversation tonight is trying to set the table for all of us to come to, correct?
Right, that's my point. I'd really like to have an exchange. I mean, we aren't gonna go anywhere if we don't have an exchange of ideas and, you know, trying to work on solutions to enhance the situation instead of let it continue to deteriorate.
Okay, Commissioner Moya?
First of all, I think wasn't there that, contract is solved because there was question under the Untitled Trust, situation. I think because of the employees that we had at the museum there, I think at that time was almost considered to be employees of the museum and not necessarily the city, because they were doing soliciting, they were doing all kinds of stuff that, I think, there was a question that was brought on, that's why the contract was then examined, and then, I think the attorney was the one who avoided it because he considered there were some problems with that.
Right, I have a copy of that letter. He talks about the anti-donation clause,
Mhm.
but if it's your employee and you're in your building, I don't understand how
Yeah,
it's
but
donating
but
to anything.
the stuff that were soliciting, like you get donations and all that, was going to another entity, like that was not the city, it was going into the, your,
UHRI.
yes,
Yeah.
uh-huh. And so that was where the conflict of interest, if I recall, when the attorney brought it to our attention, was. I think city employees can only work for the city and be under the instruction of the city.
Right,
And actually, the clerk was supposed to, and it turned out that they were not even under the instruction, they were under the auspices, they were under the board of the, not the board, the advisory, but the other board was the one, their boss, and I think,
we never felt that way.
well, they did, and I mean, it came across that way, and so what happened is, I think that's where the anti-donation clause came in, and also the fact that they were, I think that's what the attorney said, they were soliciting, I think like for equipment and stuff like that, and selling some stuff that you guys, I guess tickets or something like that. So all that is where it got to be a problem when the report came in. So that, not the report, a complaint, was a complaint made against it, and that's how we all got involved. So what happens is when we examine it, then the attorney dissolved the contract with you guys. The other thing is the board was then dissolved, reason because the same board that was on the other board was in the same board. So there was really just a replica of the advisory board that was forced to come to this commission. So then I think the commission decided that the best thing to do was just dissolve the board, the advisory board, because nothing was happening, no communication was coming. So that's where it all stands. And right now, we still got one employee, you say, part-time?
One part-time.
Do we have other employees for other of the museums?
No, sir. Throughout the Railroad Museum and Route 66 Museum, which are also housed in city facilities, they're 100% volunteer. No employees, no city employees.
May I make a statement on that? They don't have regular hours either. Because they don't have enough volunteers to open it on a regular basis.
I think the Railroad Museum is being taken over by Main Street, is that correct?
They have, and they're closed right now due to the Bands of Enchantment occupying it, but I heard they're planning on hopefully opening up in May, I believe, April or May.
And I understand the importance of the museum. I think when I was for my 16 years in the early parts of the 80s, I was probably one of the most advocate for the board and museum. I think we worked really hard in building it to where we are today. So with all the other people, I think we have Ms. Landon out of Raglan was really one of the big advocates, and so was Ms. Big, and I can remember the other. They really were good at the 80s, and they really built it to where it is today. I was also a member of that museum at that time, but to be honest with you, when it comes to the anti-donation clause, we have to be very careful, because don't forget, all our audits and reports go into the state, and then we can actually get in difficulty, and that's where the sensitive part is at this point. And I think, we also have, and I understand the importance of the museum, because our community's history and foundation is in that museum, if we look at it from that direction. But at the same time, we also have to be very cautious on how we proceed to make sure we support it. Things like they can ask the larger tax for funding. They can do grants. All that can be accomplished to subsidize what has been cut because the budget being so tight right now. And also the fact is that we have to be, you are a 501c3 corporation. So you really are exempt from taxes if even if you were to acquire the building, that would sort of be, you would not have to pay taxes. That's why 501c3. So there's a lot of things that they can work with and we can support them as far as we can. Maintenance of the building is very essence because we own the building. The safety of that building is very important. I think the asbestos, we finally got it all cleaned up, and that took a lot of work and a lot of grant writing, but we got it done. And that's another thing we can do if we have other areas that we can do grant writing for the purpose that it's a facility itself. The city can do it, because it goes directly to the property that is owned by the city. So that's where we're looking at. I love the museum. I've been an advocate since 1980. I have sat on the board and everything else. And also, I was a liaison for all those years. And now that I came back, I noticed how different it had turned. There was a very lack of communication between the city and the community and their board. And before, we were very much aware on the monthly reports that we were receiving. But anyway, that's where it is. And I do support the museum 100%, but things are the way they are.
Commissioner Villanueva, do you have anything, comments?
I think he answered them all. I think there should be some kind of grants for that building,
Barbara, do you still write grants? Did you ever write grants?
I did not. Yeah, me personally?
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought maybe you did over there at small business or something. No? Okay,
We help people, but no, I did not myself.
okay.
I know that Santa Rosa does use the singletons for some grant writing and stuff like that, and they're trying to do something like this, like which we have here, which we're very lucky to have. And I know they're trying to get, I think, they're doing a Route 66, I don't know what else, they were doing all kinds of stuff, but they didn't get to first base because the Corona came in. But they do go out for grants, and they do get good grants, and they're private foundations that are available for it. There's a Cornerstone also that has grants available for it.
That'd be something.
Well, that would be something I think that
We could pursue.
the city would have to apply for grants to do something with the building, because it's not THRI's
No,
building,
I
so we
I
can't.
agree
No,
100% there.
that's what
And
we're
I would
saying.
Yeah,
say that.
and, that would be great, and, THRI is willing to do fundraiser things. We did, we did the haunted ghost thing, trying to raise funds to help refurbish the airplane. And we're working really hard on refurbishing our windmill. So there are, we've got a lot of worker bees over there that are trying really hard, but they also have other commitments in their life. And as far as keeping the museum open all the time, that would be really, really hard.
The other thing is being a 501c, you are eligible for grants a lot.
Right.
Than you are if you're not. Which are available, those grants are also available, except for the legislature part, state funding, because that also goes to communities. But you're eligible for a lot of the other foundations that are available for that type of grants, being that type of corporation.
So would someone from the city show me the ropes of how to do a grant? Because I've never done one.
That would be, actually, they can probably, well, doesn't that school, what is the vocational school, don't they have?
College.
No, grant writing classes.
Lands.
Yeah, they're hard, but at the same time, you guys are such a corporation that you can really utilize that.
Another thing too, I realize we did away with the board,
Mhm.
our, commissioners.
Advisory board.
But I think maybe if we at least had a liaison that would go to the THRI meetings, that might help too. That would be a way we could at least find out what's going on.
Well, I do know that Paula, who is the museum attendant, publishes a monthly report. She gives THRI a copy that we have at our board meetings, but she also has told me that she sends a copy of that to the city manager. So I don't know if it's by hard copy or by email, but so you all have a way of getting some information. It's just, we don't have a way of having an exchange of information, you know? So,
Well, I think that's why it would be better if we had one of us as a liaison.
that
I mean,
would be,
you
that
know,
would be
even
great,
though Paula is doing that, it's still,
right?
we don't always get all the report. If she could send it to all of us or something, that would be helpful too, or maybe start forwarding it to our packets, maybe.
What's in her report is how many visitors there were, how, much, money she collected as far as admissions, that money goes to the city, how many volunteer hours were worked, projects that THRI is working on, that kind of just a outline of what happened. You know, if maintenance happened or something like that.
Hello,
Hello?
may I make a statement?
Who is this?
That sounds like Alan Dowerty, he's our president.
This is Alan Darty with the PHRI board.
Oh, okay.
I would like to interject that we would love having a person from the council coming in on a regular basis. I know that we do send the reports in to you, but having someone there in person might be able to make the process of communication go faster and have a point of input from the city with us while we're making some of our decisions and going over some of our material.
I think that's a great idea myself.
Mark, I know you have a lot on your plate. Would that be helpful for you as well?
Yeah, as long as I get something scheduled out, that way I can put up my calendar. It'd be beneficial if we could have a commissioner as well.
Well,
Let me ask you a question. Remember with the situation we're gonna do with the parks, did they ever get that accomplished with the museum? That we're gonna kind of align and things that, because I think just before Jarrett left, we had talked to the museum on trying to label things, be able to see things better at the museum.
Oh, I see.
Organizing it with the state parks were coming in to help. Did they ever utilize that?
I've never heard of that.
I think there was a little revolvers on that. I have to jump in on that thing because the state parks are willing to come in and work and organize.
We would appreciate help with signage because a lot of the things in our museum, if you're not old enough to know what it is because your grandma had one, you don't know what it is. And museums need to tell a story. So that is one of our ongoing projects, is to try to label these items as to what they are, when they were used, what their purpose was, that kind of thing.
That was under Jarrett. Jarrett, the city
Right.
manager, he got us that grant for that. I don't know if they utilized it or not, whether it go ahead, and I don't know what happened to it. But that was one of the biggest things that we had complaints from a lot of people, that there was a lot of stuff together, but nothing was labeled, nobody knew what it was.
Yeah, I think that was before I came, so I'm sorry I can't
So,
answer that.
I think we got that grant or something from the state parks.
Interjecting.
Okay. Go ahead.
If I may interject here, I believe what you might be referring to is when we were working with the museum program, applying for more certification through a national organization. And they did come in and give us a recommendation on increasing signage. The lady that we worked with was a member of one of the state parks out of Colorado, who was their representative. But there was no grant involved in that other than them coming in to help us as we were trying to upgrade our certification level.
No, I know there was no money exchange. It was more of a courtesy type of service that was provided by the parks to help better lay out the museum.
And I don't think there's any of us that want to see the museum closed. I mean, that's an important history to Dignitary. So we can work on that. We can get maybe, what days do y'all meet?
We meet the first Friday of every month at 9 a.m.
First Friday.
And we meet in the annex building of the museum.
I've been to several of the meetings.
Well, on a related note, We would like to make sure that we invite all the counselors to come over to the museum at some time in the future to see some of the upgrades and advances that we've done lately, and to be able to let us fill you in on some things that we have planned for in the future, as well as some of the dire needs, especially with the building that's been mentioned before, that need to be addressed sometime soon. So, we need to make sure we have those discussions.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Okay.
I did not bring the copy with me, but I came across minutes of a museum advisory board meeting from about 10 years ago. This meeting, Mr. Doug Powers was the city manager at that time. He was dealing with people on a state level, with community development. And he said that there was a program at the state level that was refurbishing neon. And he asked THRI if the city could borrow our Hotel Bornberg sign. And that permission was granted. So I'm trying to track down the Bornberg sign. We would love to have the Bornberg's hotel sign. Paula from the museum spoke with Mr. Powers. He said it did not go anywhere, that it was in storage in the city.
Where?
Well, I spoke with Ralph Lopez Friday, and he had seen the sign at some point in time, which I was really encouraged by that. He thought perhaps it was in storage at the planning and development area. He said they had an area large enough to get a forklift in, so they kind of had storage of some of the really big things. I have an email to him, including the copy of those minutes, so that it shows that it was indeed a loan to the city. We'd love to get that sign back if you all could help us. Can you check on if it's over in planning development somewhere?
Absolutely.
Well, Joanna, can you look also for the princess? Remember, they took it down, it's supposed to be in storage somewhere.
I remember.
Well, so there's a dark hole called storage in Tucumcari.
Somewhere, but
Okay,
that one was supposed to have been in storage.
You know, there's been a resurgence of interest by some local groups in restoring local neon, and I think that would just be an incredible,
Project.
yeah, so.
That's great to hear. I've never known that those signs still existed. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I knew they did, but we've looked for them for, well, as long as I've been here.
Well, let's grab a couple of flashlights and.
Well, I was willing to, go look, but I wasn't given that opportunity. So if you could help me with that, that would be fabulous.
Okay, all right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, before we move to the next, can we take a I've got to make an important phone call.
Sure,
They just
take a
came up.
5-minute break.
Thank you.
So if
Turn
anybody,
your mic off, please, recorder's off.
Yeah. Pablo.
I'll call
anybody
it.
needs to go to the
I'll
restroom.
probably go ahead over here.
May I ask a question as we're in break?
Sure,
We're off, Roger.
the recorders are off.
Okay,
You probably need to wait until we.
okay,